What's up, kids? How's everybody doing today? Welcome back to our studio, shop, whatever you want to call it. My playground, that's basically what it is. All right, I'll deal with you later. My mom's. Her birthday today. 87 years old. It's hard to imagine me making it to 87. I would have known what I know now, would have taken better care for this casement that I'm in. But hey, it is what it is. So what did everybody do this week? Me? Spent a lot of time just doing solo videos, learning more about clutching systems and helixes and different weights, different systems that are available to you where you can tune in your side-by-side or four-wheeler. Also started looking at spacers and the pros and cons associated with them, the good points and the bad points, of which there are many. And now that I've taken a deeper dive into both subjects, be careful before you head either direction, either with wheel spacers, or be more specifically, be careful which kit you put inside your clutch, because a lot of different things at play. But I think the worst thing to do would be to modify your machine and not take into account a clutching system if indeed you do have a CVT system, which, let's get it, 95% of the people out there, that's what they drive. Only people like me and a few others like the manual transmissions, like in our YZ1000. But hey, enough babble. Let's get some questions, and let me bring up what Hank sent me from this week that y'all sent in. Low End Gamer. Hey, John, I've got a 2001 DRZ 250 that has low compression and idles down slowly to a stall. Starts great when cold, but won't start when hot without kickstarting. Any ideas? Well, you kind of answered your own question there. I mean, if it's got low compression, it's telling you help. I do find it funny that it's actually starting better when cold, and then doesn't want to idle once it gets warmed up. Could be that the you're losing it on the rings, and when it's cold, it's got oil around them, and that's in essence bumping up the compression. But once that oil warms up, it starts to fall away, and then it's just going by the wayside. That's just a guess on my part. But at any rate, it sounds like it's going to be a top-end rebuild for you. The simplest thing. Wish you would have told me what the numbers were on your compression. If you're watching, if you would send that information to me. Oh, and by the way, if you do need to send me information directly, there is an email address to do that, and I'll bet you Hank will drop it in there for me. It is askpartzilla@youtube.partzilla.com. So if I request information or you need to get something directly to me, that is the way to do it. For a long time, we've been using just Facebook Messenger and Instagram. That's just too convoluted. I mean, now you've got the email, and just send it directly to me. All right, next question. Get back over to that document. This is a good one. At GolfCon, my exhaust smells like rotten eggs, especially on startup. What would cause that? Common occurrence for any vehicle that has a catalytic converter on it. And that smell is sulfur, of course, and that usually is an indication that your catalytic converter is starting to fail. So it's evidently overheated, and the elements in there are starting to break down, and hence the rotten egg smell. Before long, it's going to become blocked, and then your machine's probably going to quit running. So better go ahead and get ahead of it, get it fixed now, than have it strand you out there somewhere. All right, Fifth Wheeler 1. Hello, I have a used 2005 Sportsman 800 EFI. Replaced the fuel pump when it stopped working. While doing that, I also changed the injectors and plugs. Now it doesn't sound as it should. Top end running, it was backfiring a little. Did the fuel injectors get crossed by any chance? Just looking for some input before I take it apart. Not sure what you mean by crossing injectors, but the wiring, if you had those reversed, I don't think it would. I don't think it would run at all, because they're triggered with the ignition to open, or to open several times at a certain point in the combustion cycle. I would be curious if, not saying that you weren't careful, but I've swapped them out on the our 900 before. Well, I was actually it was running on one cylinder, and it ended up being a clogged injector. But at any rate, I did notice that they are a little bit finicky to get into the intake, especially if you don't use. I use just a silicone spray, to get the rubber to go in there, or the O-rings to go in. And if you don't, you just try to cram them in there dry, more than likely they may have folded up, maybe even ripped, because it sounds to me, if it's running funny and trying to backfire, that's usually an indication that you're getting air in the intake system where you should not. So I wonder if you've got an air leak around one of those injectors. So I'd say pop those back out, make sure your O-rings are okay, then use a little silicone to get the new ones back in there, if indeed I'm correct on that. Samurai 871, is there importance in selecting which caliper to bleed first on the front of a CBR 600, left or right? I don't think it will matter, because both of those lines run up, the fork, and they go to just a single block right there in the middle. So it really doesn't matter. You usually want to start, when you're bleeding a system, with the caliper furthest away, and in this case, it's going to be a dead heat, to get back to it. So no, it really doesn't matter. 401 build. Just watched your YFC 450R not charging video. I replaced the stator and rectifier and battery, and still no charge. What's my next step? Well, you know how many things there are here to work with. You've got the stator, rectifier, battery, and what holds all that together? The harness. So evidently you've got a broken wire somewhere in your wiring harness, and just start picking it apart. But something that far in, I would really hazard to guess that it's causing more problems than just on your charging circuit. The 450R is not that expansive of a wiring harness, so I'd still want to find out where it's broken. That way, if there's something that caused it to break, maybe improper, routing, which I doubt you're going to get from Yamaha, but if somebody's modified the machine, then you would need to straighten that up. But I'd go ahead and put a new harness on it, because they're really not that expensive, especially for one that's not that complicated, so to speak. All right, Adventures I Work. I've got a question. Well, good. My 2005 YFC 450 runs very good and super strong. Okay, what's the question? But seems like the exhaust gets hot quickly. Not sure if this is a normal thing with these, or do I need a carb adjustment? Well, for the most part, it is for the 450R from Yamaha. For whatever reason, I think they jet them a little bit on the lean side, especially on the Pilot. If memory serves, and check me to make sure I'm right, I believe the Pilot is like a 42, which is actually a little too damn small for it. Go ahead and run it out to a 45, and then I would go ahead and drill out that little cap they put on top of the air fuel screw, and back it out of a quarter a turn. Now, is it going to hurt it? Especially when it's sitting at idle, to glow red. It's just what they do. You make these couple of changes as I'm suggesting, and it should calm it down a little bit, dumping a little bit more fuel. But is it going to hurt it? Probably not. But if it bothers you, go ahead and change your jetting just a little bit, and see what that does for you. LMT Adventures. My Honda 4Trax 250 has clear jets, cleaned it a few times, and did the spray method as well as the light test method. Okay. All seem to be super clean, having dipped it, but still only starts on full choke. It bogs after a minute, even on choke. Yeah, it's fouling out, and revs, but sounds better when start spraying fluid in the carb as the bogging begins. Any help is appreciated. Well, you've addressed the jets, but what you haven't told me about is actually the body of the carburetor, because that little jet, it screws into the bottom of it, and then there's going to be an orifice or a passageway on the inside of that carb body, especially on the 250s. And I assume you're talking about the Recon. Those were kind of notorious for being very difficult to clean, and you're going to be surprised that I'm going to advise this. But on that particular one, they produce so many of that particular make and model. Now you can go ahead and try to, dip it again and blow out that particular orifice, get it to clean up. But if you're having to take it in and get it worked on at, whatever per hour, you can actually go buy a new one for right at, well, it was under $100 last time I looked. So sometimes I know it's sad that we live in a throwaway society, but sometimes that may be the best alternative. But hey, don't give up yet. Go ahead, sink it again, and try blowing it out with compressed air. You just put that blowout, an air tip with a rubber tip, air gun with a rubber tip on the end of it, and see if you can blow through it. Chances are it's stopped up in there, and that's what's really causing your problem. Tony Pinzer had asked, I bought a Polaris Razor 800. The light bar stopped working, the radio, horn, etc. The lights to the Razor are still working and still driving. It does cut off at idle. What could I check? That really sounds like a charging issue to me. It's on its way to dying, and we've done dozens of different videos. I'm pretty sure we did a charging video on our Razor 900S. So if you would go through that, pretty simple system: stator, regulator, rectifier, battery. That's your 3 players. Oh, and the wiring harness, in case if those 3 things check out and you're still having an issue. But it sounds like that charging system is starting to give up, in my humble opinion. So it looks like you need to check into that. All right, that does it for questions that were sent in. Let's see what you've got for me today. All right, not that many today, so let's go. For love of growing, ask, I have a GSXR 600 and I'm getting a stutter and an excessive backfire. Not sure what the problem is here. All right, you didn't give me a year, make, or model. I mean, a year on this one. So I'm going to go under the assumption that this is a fuel injected unit. I would also ask, what exhaust are you running on it? Because it sounds like it's potentially not getting tuned correctly, and or it's not getting fuel delivered as it should. Because both that stutter, it falling on its face, and the backfire, that's usually an indication of not enough fuel. So I would wonder how clean your injectors are. I know that on the 1000, especially the 2005, it actually has 2 sets of injectors on it. So that's another thing you may need to consider. I can't remember if the 600 has the dual injectors per cylinder or not, but I know the 1000 does. But it sounds like we've got an issue with the injectors themselves. So that's where I would head first. Go ahead and pull one of those. Motion Probe makes a neat little kit that you actually spray carb cleaner through it. It activates the injector itself just with a little 9-volt battery, which won't hurt it. You can sit there and hold it for a little while without damaging that coil and spray right through it. Just this week, one of the people I work with, Charlotte, she had a Mercury 40 horsepower outboard engine. Is fuel injected, and one of the injectors they determined it was not firing. So they brought it in. I took a look at it, hooked it up to this little Motion Pro thing, sprayed through it, seemed to be working fine, hooked it back up, it's good to go. And at $160 each, it was definitely worth my time, to get that thing cleaned out. So I would say maybe time to invest in one of those little Motion Pro kits and see if that can clean out your injectors. And you said that was a K7 600. So yeah, definitely fuel injected. So I think that's going to head you in the right direction. Only other thing is make sure you don't have any type of leaks around your the adapters coming off the throttle bodies. Make sure there's no air leaks going into the engine itself, letting it introduce too much air into it. Jose Mauricio says, "Happy Father's Day, everyone." Well, thank you, sir. Actually, this is a first for me. I'm not only a father, I'm a grandfather this year. Ah, damn. Enjoy life, kids. It goes by way too fast. But indeed, happy Father's Day to all the fathers and the grandfathers out there. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, but Penny says, I'm in the middle of rebuilding 2 quads. Lucky me, a YX 450 and a TRX 450. Oh, you're going for racers on both ends. Out of all the machines I've done, I've yet to have to rebuild one of the TRX 450s, although it's almost identical to that CRF 450R that we did a few years back. Solid engine. The 450, not that tough, and we actually have a video where I did a top end on my son's after it had a submarine adventure. So if you would check out that video, and I can at least walk you through doing the top end on it. We just did new pistons, rings, and cylinder. The head was fine. Shade Larson asks, good afternoon, John. I have a 70 Honda CL 175 in the shop. Cool. Someone had previously soldered the float, but is leaking. What do you think? Yeah, trying to get any new old stock is going to be real tough on that. I've actually resoldered or brazed those before. It's just regular lead solder. I mean, you could use stuff like you use for just electrical connections on it. Take it, hold it down in a bucket of water, and make sure she's not leaking. Plus, if it had any fuel in it, you'd be able to feel it. But yeah, good luck with that one. I love older machines. It's fun, especially we a 70. I would have been 5 years old when that was built. Just to give everybody a frame of reference of how old a machine he's working with here. Johnny Stoltz asks, weird question, what gloves do you use when using carb cleaner? Seems like the ones I've tried don't resist the chemical ones, and the ones that do are really thick. Oh, grief. Those black ones that I use. Dang, I wish I had them nearby. They're not the real thin nitrile gloves. They're just, give me 1 second. Let me go get them. I have a bad habit of not using gloves, so kudos to you for using them. The ones I use, you can get them just about anywhere. Microflex Midnight, that's the ones to go with. I buy them like 10 boxes at a time. All right, Red Art asks, I've got a... I know who this guy is. I've got a 2024 Talley Junior 100 that makes whining noises fairly often. Any idea what it could be? Well, I have a theory on this, Red Arc. I think it has to do with the not the air fuel ratio, but what the type of fuel that you're feeding him. It's probably not a high enough octane level. See you in a couple of weeks. It's my son, by the way. Happy Father's Day, Red Arc. Theodore Leonard asks, I have an 01 GSXR 600. I have to start the bike with a choke or the choke-like switch. It is fuel injected. It takes about 4 times before it starts, and it bogs, if not warm, before riding. That 01, it's not a choke. Isn't that like an injector where they're running raw fuel into the throttle bodies? Used to have to do that on jet skis in particular, 2-stroke jet skis. God, that was such a pain in the butt to bring those things to life. But I think that's what you're talking about, where they're having you squirt in extra fuel before it goes. That really surprised me that it's fuel injected and that it's that tough to start. Hank, if you would make a note of Theodore's question. Let me dig into that one a little bit more, and we'll kick off next week with that information. That work for y'all? Yeah, give me some time to look at the way that system's put together because I'm interested. All right, guys. Looks like I have caught up with you, and well, some good questions. So we really appreciate that. Coming in here, spending a little time with us, and well, makes it fun. Makes it a good way for me to wrap up my week. Well, speaking of that, everybody have a great weekend, a great Father's Day weekend. In my case, a grandfather's weekend, a great week, and God willing, we will see you next Friday at 3:00. Y'all take care.